Hello and welcome to the Scholar Progenium. Today I'm going to be talking about what could be considered a sensitive subject for some blood angels out there, which is our relationship with deep striking. Now, deep striking has been a very popular tactic for a long time. Mass deep striking I'm talking about here. 2 or 3 units coming down, turn 2, you've got your 3d6 charge stratagem, you've got another reroll, you're chancing another unit, who cares, you're going to crush them anyway. You come in, that comes off, you're winning the game. Everyone loves it, it's great. And, it's something that's, in many ways, we've all become hooked on this deep strike, right? But, we have done other things in the past, okay? I remember, mass transports in 5th. I have so many rhinos that I just never use. I had Storm Ravens, because Storm Ravens became a thing. Deep striking Land Raider Redeemers with Assault Termies in them, because that was a thing. Bars coming in on the sides, outflanking it. Crazy, crazy times. In 7th, Drop Pod Assault Marines with loads of melters were a thing. I actually got Best General in Cali 2015 with that very tactic. So not mass charges, but very much, close range firepower with, the charges coming afterwards, of course. Assault Cannon Spam in 8th edition, that was great fun as well. We've done loads of cool stuff. The ripping and tearing is always there. And, we've had this great time with the deep striking, the mass deep striking, but unfortunately, I think we just have to admit to ourselves that the mass deep strike assault is over, at least for now. I'm not saying we can't deep strike, and what I'm going to talk about in this video now is how we can deep strike effectively, how we can still scratch that glorious itch, but still win games doing it. And as I've adapted my tactics to this, I've had a lot more fun with my blood angels, and these tactics have been working for me, so hopefully they'll work for you. Now, a lot of our forces these days need to be on the board. We need to be controlling objectives, we need to be scoring secondaries, competing for stuff, and you can't just have a couple of guys hanging on an objective. You need to be controlling these objectives and controlling the board. So, back in the day, I would love to have, as much of my force as the rules would let me, basically half my force coming in from deep strike. So, that's not really viable anymore. It's not, a good idea. It's a nice idea to, drop onto these objectives and take them and that kind of thing, but you have to drop 9 inches away. If your opponent's moved onto them, there's a lot of fast units. There's a lot of units that can deploy in advance. Loads of things have these abilities these days. We're playing against a lot of Marines who have your opponents, their troops have these abilities. So, it's one of those where having to come in from mass deep strike to control the board it's just not viable. Your opponent's going to be able to set themselves up to give you just rubbish positioning, and it's frustrating. Okay, we've just got to bite the bullet, both literally and metaphorically, or this is what I've been doing in my games, and just deploying most of my forces on the board, having a death company on the board even, and that kind of thing, and just running at my opponent with a lot of my forces, but not in some mad dash. The idea is that I'm taking control of objectives. I love taking the raised banner stratagem because your opponent really doesn't have the time or resources to throw your banners down again when the melee starts. Once the blood angels get to work, your opponent needs everything on that. So I love to move up the board, raise some banners with some assault marines. I'm not bothered about their shooting, assault interceptors, or whatever troops you have and however you do it. But we like to take the board and take control of some objectives, and we need to hold those objectives to score. That's just the way the game works now. But we are going to be moving with our forces towards the opponent. We are going to need to do a mass assault still from the ground. Boots on the ground. We're taking and holding some land, and then maybe what I like to do personally is move up with a combination of forces, and then my sort of more long range firepower they all move onto the objectives up the board, and then my assault forces carry on moving forward, and they start a fight, which the opponent then doesn't have the time to take the stuff I've left behind controlling the objectives away from me. So I have to hold on to those objectives just by causing chaos in the opponent's lives and just hacking at them with the rest of my army that I've deployed on. But a great addition to this is, of course, like your most expensive valuable unit, a really chunky unit of Sanguinary Guard or something like that. Although they can start on the board, they're a viable unit to start on the board because they are safe. But I mean they are tougher rather with that 2-up save. But I mean, I personally don't deploy my Sandguard on the board if I've only got one unit of them because they're gonna eat everything. Yeah, the rest of your army's not gonna take a scratch, but that Sandguard unit's dead. Not worth it in my eyes. But I love to bring my Sandguard unit on, just one unit, deep striking in turn 2, into the fray as part of the assault on the opponent's lines because, 8 inches is viable. We've got that +1 to assault and charge, so really useful. That +1 to the to advance and charge, sorry, +1 to assault and charge, +1 to advance and charge, really useful. And also it means, our units that are moving up the board en masse, they have that +1 to advance, and it's really helpful. It's so useful. So I'm bringing them in. They've got an ancient charge, very possible. And because most of my units have run up into the opponent's face and they've got like 6-7 inch charges, they're going to be pulling those off, no problem whatsoever. I can afford to just say, right, my one reroll is going on that. I've got an 8-inch rerollable charge. There's a very good chance I'm going to pull that off. And because I'm putting them into the main fray, the other units are demonstrating their power and their viciousness, and my opponent's needing to, take care of those guys as well. Maybe that unit that's just a bit further back behind those charging units, maybe in a bit of cover as well, hopefully. Those guys, they're harder to kill, Sandguard and cover, it's 1-up save, it's like they've got plenty on their plate to deal with. So they're safe coming in turn 2, and you've protected your most powerful unit. That's why we like to deep strike in, keep them safe. And, you've got a very good chance of going in and a very low risk to the unit if it messes up its charge. And that's what we're in the game for, not frustrating charges that let us down, leave us just standing in front of the opponent's lines and just getting shot to pieces and counter-assaulted and just ripped apart. Very frustrating situation to be in when we've all been there, you roll a 5-inch charge, then you roll a 6, then you roll a 4, and you're just like, ah! So, that's what we're trying to avoid here. Now, there's another very effective way. I'm not saying I only have one unit in Deep Strike here. There's another very effective way to Deep Strike other units. Now, what I've been doing is I've been taking, a relatively meaty unit of Death Company, only 8, but, still nasty. And with those 2 wounds, I've been deep striking them away from the main fight, in cover. And what I'm looking for, what I'll hopefully find, the prey that they are keeping an eye out for, is sort of a unit or a set of units that can't really take down, 8 Death Company. For me, it might be, 10 Vanguard Veterans for you, who knows? But or 9, obviously. But, I'm looking for a unit or a set of units that are kind of isolated. Maybe there's some basic troop choices, that have deployed, holding an objective. You've swung all your forces another direction. Your opponent's countered in that direction. That's where the fight's happening, and you've exposed this other unit. Or your opponent might just be trying to hold many objectives and spread their forces too thinly. They've overextended themselves and left you this juicy target. But either way, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to identify a unit that can't reliably defend itself against the Death Company. I'm going to deep strike, aiming for that 8-inch charge, 9 inches away, and I'm going to deep strike in a place that protects myself, cover, or -1 to hit at least from where their shots are coming from, something like that. I might not even end up going for this unit. I'm going to go for the charge, but if I don't get it off, so be it. The idea is these Death Company are nice and safe. They're away from the combat. They can shoot off the pistols at this unit. If it's only a squad of 5 dudes or something, that could well take them out. If they get the assault off, they're going to clear them out and take that objective, really open up your options and really put your opponent on the back foot. But if they don't make that charge, or even if they do and they clear that unit up and take control of that, what my Death Company or your support unit are actually going to want to do is they're going to want to use that massive movement to redeploy across the board. Use a classic tactic of ours and just redeploy rapidly. And turn 3 in 40k these days, when you're playing with your assault army, your Blood Angels army, having that unit of Death Company rock up as reinforcements, it's just always perfect timing. It's always the last thing your opponent needs. And in an absolutely ideal world, what you'll do is you'll deploy on a hard flank, right? So you're going to take maybe the center and one left, but you're ignoring the right, or vice versa. Okay, so you're doing what's called a refused flank tactic. Your opponent's going to, however they've deployed, whether they're deployed first or whether they're counter deploying against you, and obviously if you're deploying first, you want to be more central, of course, but use your heads. But the idea being that your opponent is going to either shift you off the objectives you're going to take, or to defend themselves. They're going to need to counter deploy in some way, and you're actually using your army, whether they're going to deploy away from you to give themselves more time to shoot, or whether they're going to redeploy towards you to attack you themselves in close combat, or a combination of the both. You're keeping in mind the idea that you're thinking about the long game. You're thinking about drawing their army into a section of the board. You're herding them, okay? And then you can hit them with your deep strike units. You can pick them apart. In that herding process, stuff gets lost on the edges. Stuff gets isolated. Ideal cover for deep strike, and spots open up. And you're using that mass presence you've got on the ground. Yeah, you're going to be taking more casualties from shooting. Yeah, some of your elite units are probably going to get targeted. But all our units are really good. And when it comes down to it, when it comes down to the melee, which it always does with Blood Angels, any unit in your army is going to, hold its own or better the average opponent in almost every case. So herding your opponent around the board and then creating opportune places to deep strike, picking off isolated units and supporting your mass attack with this other, deep striking unit, that is what has been working for me in terms of deep striking. So, I'm not going to go on any further. I don't need to wax lyrical about this. It's pretty straightforward concept. But, I hope you guys have, enjoyed this video. I hope it's been clear enough for you. This is just a few things that have been working for me. If you've got ideas about deep striking, what are your feelings and that kind of thing about the changes to the Blood Angels codex or supplement as it is these days, let me know below. And yeah, so I'll call it there. So this has been the Scholar Progenium. I hope you found this video entertaining and interesting. Thank you very much for your time. Goodbye.